Martin, Itinerant Services Assistant Principal, who is going to introduce Elle Blades, our deaf and hard of hearing instructor for our itinerant services.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Hey, thank you, Superintendent Dowd, members of the board, and colleagues. I want to thank you for the opportunity to spotlight students from the itinerant services and take a moment to introduce Elle Blades. Elle is a teacher for students who are deaf and hard of hearing. She started at District 287 in the fall of 2022 and works with students from early childhood through high school. Elle works closely with teams and families to ensure they have resources and individualized instruction that is relevant to their specific needs in a variety of educational environments. And with that, I will turn it over to Elle.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening. My name is Elle Blades, and I am a teacher for students who are deaf or hard of hearing within Intermediate District 287. In my role, I serve the districts of St. Louis Park, Hopkins, and Eden Prairie. Within the districts, I work with the students from birth to 21, as Melissa mentioned. The video that I want to share with you tonight is from one of the early childhood families I work with in Eden Prairie. Like almost everything in special education, early childhood is a completely different beast. I remember when I was learning about early childhood intervention practices, and I believe I said something along the lines of, "You mean we actually go into their homes?" And yes, we do. We go into their homes. In the video, we'll meet Hadley, who is in the Eden Prairie School District. Hadley is 7 months old and has a unilateral hearing difference due to the absence of an auditory nerve on the left side. Sarah, my co-teacher, and I started home visits with her when she was just 10 weeks old. Recently, we added PT service in addition to DHH services. Hadley and her family have been learning ASL along with other communication strategies. In Eden Prairie, we follow a primary service model with evidence-based quality intervention practices. Families in Eden Prairie love that we are sort of a one-stop shop, I'd say, when it comes to their educational needs, in that we can monitor all aspects of the child's development and provide support in any area that is needed. After the video, I will be happy to answer any questions that you may. Please enjoy. Hello, my name is Elle Blades, and I am a teacher for students who are deaf, hard of hearing at Intermediate District 287. I want to introduce you to Jenna, who lives in Eden Prairie and is mother to Hadley. Hadley receives evidence-based quality intervention practices through a primary provider service model in district. Sarah Bosch, an early childhood special education teacher, and myself provide home visits to Hadley along with her family. Jenna will go into further detail.
Our daughter Hadley is 7 months old, and we are getting her early intervention hauled through the Eden Prairie School District. Hadley was born 5 weeks early and was born without a nerve in her left ear that she needs in order to be able to hear. With her prematurity, we have concerns about her reaching developmental milestones on time. Sarah and Elle are helping her family with this and providing us resources to help us. Elle has also been teaching us some basic baby sign language skills we use to help teach Hadley. We recently have added physical therapy to our meetings, which have also been helping Hadley, and she has now rolled over a few times all on her own. We only want the best for Hadley and are very excited to see her grow and learn new skills that Sarah and Elle are helping support our family with.
I will say, yes, she is always that smiling. I've never been over to her house, and she's not always just been an absolute joy. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
So how many times a week, a month do you visit in the home?
That's an excellent question. So we leave that up to the families.
Okay.
So we probably wouldn't go out more than once a week. I think most of the families we see about one time a week, unless there's something really specific going on that we need to provide more support with. But it could be anywhere kind of, usually our comfort zone is 1 week to 1 month, once a month. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. And-
I was very surprised to see that these services are provided to a child so young. So how would a parent find out about the availability of these services in their district?
So specifically for DHH, for our deaf and hard of hearing students, they go through right now with the state of Minnesota, they go through a newborn hearing screening. And so they come up on our radar already, and then or I should say like specifically, so in this case, Eden Prairie is contacted and they're told we have a new baby in this. And then from there, then Sarah and I are in touch with the family. Yeah. Michelle.
Thank you so much for this great video. Does she need a babysitter?
Yes, exactly. She has so many people willing to do that, but I'm sure there's always room for more.
I was pleased to see.
Yes.
Um, what is her outlook? I didn't know that about nerves in the ears. Is that okay to talk about?
Of course, yes. I am not an audiologist, but I will give you a quick anatomy of the ear is that the two types of hearing differences that we see with amongst students are sensory neural, and then that means it's internally or conductive, and that means it's more externally or that middle ear. So when you get fluid in your ear, when you have like a cold or something like that, that's that conductive hearing loss that you're feeling, right? And so that could be due to a number of factors. Her specific case is sensory neural. So it's that her auditory nerve is just missing. It's not there. There's no way for it to send pathways to the brain. So even with any sort of hearing aid technology, cochlear implant, you can put the cochlear implant in there, but it's still not be able to send to the brain. So as Jenna mentioned, they're working on sign language. They're doing sign language. They love it. They're just picking it up right away. They really adapted to it. And then also specifically with unilateral kids, we're working on strategies to make sure she's not sleeping on that left ear. That's her good ear. Make sure that it's not make sure that she's able to get in the auditory that she needs.
Hi, I just was wondering, I know that all of our districts provide services. So how does District 287 kind of like move into, in particular, a child this young to provide services? Is it through our? home
It would be
district?
through, yeah.
Would be
So
through-
I work in Hopkins as well. I don't do early childhood in Hopkins, but I do work in Hopkins as well. So I think it is dependent on districts. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, no.
we'll ask Melissa. to come up. Thank you.
So we work in collaboration with all of our member districts to provide itinerant services from deaf, hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired. We have a whole array, and the referrals come to us from the member districts. So your directors of special education will initiate that referral and send it in, and then we start that process of working with the different teams in whatever area can help support.
Would you just introduce yourself for our
Oh,
new board
sure.
members,
So
too?
I'm Melissa Browding, the Director of Special Education and Itinerant Services. You know, there's a few I haven't met yet.
Thanks, Melissa.
And I just had a quick follow-up to that. So then the process would be that our district would be like, this just isn't a level of service we can provide, and then that's when we would reach out to you.
Well, it may be that you do not have a teacher of the deaf, hard of hearing that you work with. So we work with all of the member districts to kind of fill in any of those spaces for particularly low incidence services where you may have a need for, 5 or 6 students within your district for this particular area of service. So you can contract with us at 287 and then we come out to provide that. So then it works well here at 287. We're able to have a pretty large team and a group of professionals in these low incident service areas that it would be challenging for an independent district to build out just based on the needs that you may have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. We get to get on the bus and go into our school buildings, but we haven't, gone in anyone's home. So we got to kind of go along
Absolutely.
with you without having to get on the bus. And, invade people's house, and that was just wonderful. And we try not to play favorites among students. We've seen a lot of brilliant, amazing students, but like this is maybe the most adorable. So, yeah.
Can't be a baby.
Yeah. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Principal Antoine Williams from North Education Center, who's going to introduce Ashlyn Dwyer, Assistant
Yes.
Principal. Did I say right?
Oh.
Ashlyn,
As-
sorry. As the March Above and Beyond recipient. Thank you for correcting me.
So welcome. Well, I say welcome, but thank you first off. I'm nervous. Superintendent Dow and board members, I want to say thank you again for welcoming us at North Education Center. So I have the pleasure and privilege to introduce one of our assistant principals that works tirelessly at North Education Center to provide our students with the best leadership possible. Ms. Ashlyn came to us in 2029, 29, Jesus, Lord help me. 2019. I'm nervous. Please forgive me. I'm nervous. 2019. All right, there we go. 2019. And I'm gonna tell this story. And I told you I would tell this story. So we were very close to losing Miss Ashlyn. During the interview process, it played out that Ashlyn fell with the numbers at our second. And it was a debate when we called. I remember this conversation. Ms. Tanya, you could look at me because it was us having this conversation. And we was talking back and forth. Mostly like, what do we do? Like our first left us, what do we do? I looked at Ms. Tanya, Ms. Allen, I said, Ms. Allen, I think you just need to call and just tell her the truth, right? And received a call from Ms. Tanya and Ashlyn. She said yes. And I'm very thankful she did say yeah. Because Ashlyn works with our A100 school program and our A200 elementary program, as well as leads our TTM program. The work that she does is brilliant. We're very, very lucky to have her also lead our PBIS initiatives and our climate and culture. And if you ever walked into NEC, you would understand why our climate is the way it is. It has a lot to do with Ms. Ashlyn. So with that, I'll shut my mouth and welcome Ms. Ashlyn.
Thank you for having me. What Antoine forgot to mention was when I walked in for my interview, Antoine was there and we had taught together a long time ago at Boys Totem Town with St. Paul Public Schools. And so it was really refreshing and fun to have a friendly face at the interview that I bombed. And then was second. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Questions or anything for?
So the best part about going to North is, besides the culture and the climate and the feeling of being welcome, is to see Ashlyn in all of her different outfits because of PBIS.
Oh, yeah.
She's been in pajamas and she'll go, Superintendent Dowd, it's pajama day. I don't dress like that. I just want to acknowledge like an administrator modeling full in and engagement around building culture and climate and your work around PBIS. And so when it was introduced at a staff meeting, you could just feel the energy from the staff clapping, and I'm so proud that you are a leader at North. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Other comments, questions? Yeah, Kim.
So the first thing I'll say is I'm a strong believer in things happen for a reason, right?
Mhm.
So we're so lucky to have you here. So what has been the thing that's been most surprising to you as you come into 287? And what's something that is really, top of mind for you in terms of what you'd like to accomplish in the next 12, 24, 36 months?
Yeah, so I worked in a setting 4 before. I was actually an EA with 916 before I started my teaching career. And then I went into
I worked at North St. Paul High School as a special ed teacher, EBD teacher there. So I've kind of had like a gamut of what federal setting 4 looks like and then what it looks like in a more mainstream setting. So this is my 4th year within 287. I think what's surprising to me is just how everyone like works together to serve the whole child. Not surprising, but just like what amazes me every day coming in is that we're kind of all on the same team working to serve our unique learners. What I want to accomplish, I think I really, part of why I like to build like a positive school climate and culture is I want everyone to feel invested and like have a sense of belonging. And I want our staff to feel that too. And I want our students to feel that too. And so, I mean, if you're ever able to come out to NEC in the morning and watch our students get off buses, it's just like the best thing in the world. Our staff are giving hugs to kiddos and high fives. And, you know, we have we go through like a check-in process and it doesn't feel invasive or anything like that because of the staff there. And like, I think my leadership team, the other 2 admin that can't be here tonight is that like, we're able to be our authentic selves. Who I am at school is who I am at home. And yeah, it's a wonderful place to be.
Thanks.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
I love hearing the stories of folks going from an education support professional to teacher to administration. I think that's a story that we hear a lot in 287 and maybe more here than in our home district. So thank you. Thank you for all of your service and to Principal Williams too. When we have been there, the climate and culture has been palpable, I think, to those of us who have been there. And I know that's all of your work together. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, should we clap? We can clap. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
Thank you for the work y'all do.
All right, next up, we have in our instructional report, safety and mental health update. And I think we have Tanya Allen, Executive Director of Student Support, and Jake Porsche, our Senior Manager of Health, Safety, and Security to lead us up.
Superintendent Dowd and members of the board. We're going to start off with talking a little bit about more of the physical safety, and we're going to transition to talking about mental health and safety. So I'll turn it over to Jake Porsche, our Senior Manager of Health, Safety, and Security.
Yeah, thanks again, members of the board, Superintendent Dowd, appreciate it. So before I do get started, I want to give a little bit of a background to why I'm covering the information I'm covering for all the new board members. And I'll apologize in advance for all the pre-existing board members. Some of this is going to be repeat for you, but it never hurts to have a second reminder of what we're doing. So last year, we had some critical incidents take place within the school. We had found out a couple firearms had come into our school. And then tragically on February 1st, 2022, we had a shooting outside South Education Center where we lost the student, tragically. At that time, the district had decided that we were going to review all safety and security practices district-wide. So that a team was developed, led by Ben McGrath at that time, involving all of our bargaining units, all roles, races, and genders within this team. And we also included the director of Minnesota State Schools, Randy Johnson, to partake in this group to reevaluate all of our safety and security. Okay, so with that said, that team put a lot of time in, a lot of effort in, to look at everything. We came up with some recommendations, which is some of the systems that we'll talk about today. And then we also sent out a safety climate survey, excuse me, to all of our internal and external partners. So this is our students, our staff, family. And one of the systems that I'll talk about, you can see it up there right now, Evolve. We had overwhelming response rate of putting back metal detectors or some type of weapon detection system. So that is what that group had done, along with a few other items I'll touch on here. So some of the topics we're covering today are the layers of safety approach and the mindset. This team had looked at that and we wanted to ultimately touch on the culture and mindset, which I'll cover on, and the new technologies and upgrades. So the safety culture is the big one for me, right? It's an all hands on deck. You hear this model. I've heard it year after year. When you fly anywhere, if you see something, say something, okay? It's an all hands on deck model, right? The more eyes and ears you have anywhere, the safer you'll be if they're thinking about safety, right? I don't think a lot of us were thinking about safety all the time until about 3 years ago We had a pandemic, and then violence is on the news every week, right? So now it is on people's minds, and we want to use that to our advantage to say, you know, our expectation in safety and security here at 287 is safety is everyone's responsibility. So I know you're a teacher, but if you see something that doesn't feel safe, please report it and we can address it. And trying to get everybody to think that way, we feel provides the safest environment within our district and our school sites. So that has been a push this year. The next item the group really collaborated on and put this together is this graphic. So there is a physical copy if you want it right in front of you, a front and a back side. The back side will go into more details on this layers, but the best way I can describe this is like Swiss cheese, and it's similar to COVID, okay? The more layers you have in safety, the safer you'll be on either reducing an incident from spiking to more escalation or preventing one from ever happening, okay? So robust safety planning is just one layer. That's not the answer, but it's one layer, and so on and so forth down. So emergency notification, locked doors, camera systems, visitor management system, student screening, weapon detection system, SSCs, mental health support, and the big one you see on the bottom is relationships. So this is the one for sure that is research proven that prevents incidents from either escalating or being identified and preventing them from ever happening is our staff and students having a relationship, seeing a change in behavior, reporting it, and just having a good pulse within your district. That even goes for staff, right? Maybe staff are going through a really hard time in their personal life, having a pulse on that and being able to report it and feel in a safe location. So we feel that is the biggest safety layer at this point. So that's why it's so big. Kind of looks like a platform, but that is why it is so big and what we came up with. So the new technologies. One big aspect this group really identified with was some of our technologies were really out of date. As we all know, with cell phones, I think a new one comes out every 6 months. This happens with all technology, right? So we identified we wanted a visitor management system that can track anyone that enters into our building, especially non-287 staff, okay? What this does is anybody coming in, contractor, visitor, guest, family member, we scan some type of government ID. What this does is it runs them through a national sex offender registry. So they are coming in contact with students coming into our building. We wanted to know that. Not only that, but then if we were to evacuate, we only have the knowledge of who works with our district and who's in that building. But now that's a secondary knowing like what contractors or visitors are in there. We had to evacuate. Did all these people get out? So that's the really importance of the visitor management system. The same system, different platform, is the Raptor Emergency Management Alert. This plays really vital roles in many different things when dealing with emergency management. So it's gonna, we have an incident, say there's a fire, we need to evacuate. We send an alert through Raptor, okay? You can send it via PC or your mobile device. It sends out that message same way to people's PCs and their mobile device saying this situation is taking place. The next piece is it allows our staff to go in and once safely out, account for people digitally. So rather than pen and paper saying so-and-so got out, this is linked with our student and staff databases. So it knows who's in the building based on those data. Once we're out, they can check themselves in along with all their students they have with them. And then from that, if we were to evacuate or do a reunification process with our families, we digitally can track who can pick up that student. Ensuring that student is there. We can identify if they were injured, missing, all within that system, and it's digital tracking that entire thing. The best feature, we're still working on a lot of that, but the best feature to me is ensuring the right parent picks up their kids based off of like maybe a custody matter or something, but I know sometimes that can happen and that definitely has happened in previous instances that I know of, not with this district, but other places I have worked. Big one here is the weapon detection system. Really why it's called that is because it's not just looking for metal. It uses analysis, ultimately artificial intelligence to screen the object that's going through it, looking for mass casualty weapons. Why I say it that way is because it's looking for firearms and explosive devices specifically. So it'll look at metal, it'll look at all the factors of whatever's going through it and say, yep, that looks like something that could be a risk. It's going to alert on it, okay? We chose this because of that survey and feedback. It's installed at all of our school sites. at 2 entry points for student drop off, and then we narrow it down to 1 entry point for the remainder of the day. Say hypothetically, every school's a little different, but after 9 a.m. we have 1 entry point. Anybody that enters into our building, staff, students, contractors, visitors, will go through the weapon detection system. Equity, fairness, and safety best practices, everyone goes through. We want to identify that really a firearm's not coming in. The nice thing on the safety layers is we have a secondary screening process, right? Our staff are screening, looking for other items, which will also pick up hopefully knives and other things. So it's 2 layers, right, of screening. This system really, we feel that it has deterred weapons from entering our school. Is there research behind it? I think it can go either way. I don't think there's any concrete evidence that it deters. I think it's more of a theory. But to that point, to our knowledge, there have been no firearms in our school at this point this school year. Some edge weapons have been identified by the system. The tricky piece there is depending on the size of the knife, it will hit or miss on it. And we hope that secondary search with our staff members will catch it then, and they have, right? That we've identified that both ways have caught edged weapons during the screening process. And then we just continue to clarify the expectations for everyone going through the system, and the expectation is no different from a student, staff, or a visitor, and ensuring we stick to that effectiveness and consistency. So now the new information here for all the board members, monitoring our systems, right? This was something that have started last fall, early summer. We've been trying to implement a lot of systems very quickly. The visitor management system has been operating all year, and it really has done a good job identifying who's been into our building. So it comes with a dashboard, and we know how many staff from the district service center visit a site, how many visitors come in, how many contractors come in, what time they come in, what time of the day come in, so we can barely verify who's coming into our buildings and when. So that's a nice feature. Raptor Alert it's used for all drills that we do. We're bound to do 5 lockdown, 5 fire, and 1 tornado as of next week statewide. And we use that as well. So we've been doing a lot of training and coaching on all of our teams, our incident command teams, our administration teams, on how to use that system and when. And it's going pretty well. I mean, I think bringing on 3-4 different systems it's a challenge, but at this point in the school year, I think they've done a really good job getting us up and running within Raptor Alert. The Evolved Weapon Detection System. So we're starting to pull data. The nice thing with these systems too, new technology is it can run and capture like a nuisance alarm is like an alarm that I would walk in and it pinged on my keys, and it's not a true threat. So we would consider that a nuisance alarm, right? And then it identifies, so once it alerts, you identify if it was a real weapon or a nuisance alarm. So we're still working on fine tuning that. You want to reduce nuisance alarms so they don't kind of seem like cry wolf. When an alert goes off, you really want to take it seriously. So that's why you try to reduce the nuisance alarms, and we're getting there. At the beginning of the year, we had lots of them. And I think now we're down to 12% of the alerts are nuisance alarms, which is really good in the industry best practice. So still something we can work on, and we're getting there, but getting better. So the last item that we're really focused on that response team was training. So past and current training. So what we've trained our district on to this point, and as of right now, all 287 staff have received a baseline safety training during workshop week. It was about 90 minutes, high level. All of our safety practices and emergency procedures were kind of covered along with all the new systems that were going into place at that time. Our incident command structure training, tabletop exercises. So in reality, every school site has their incident command. We've been working very thoroughly with each school's incident command, including the district service center incident command, on talking through incidents, who's going to manage the crisis, who needs to manage the crisis. And that's part of that tabletop. So we've been going to sites, having them pick a scenario they would like to talk about. It's usually one they've already dealt with during the school year. And then we talk through it and figure out what we can improve, how we can improve, and items like that within the incident command. It's been very beneficial at this point in time. So training on our systems, I think that's a given, right? We have the Raptor, both platforms, VMS and Alert, and the Evolved Weapon Detection. So Evolved flew in at the beginning of the year, provided us with every school site with training, and then they had staff here for the first week of school showing everybody how the system worked. Raptor, we ultimately put everybody on a virtual meeting. It was recorded in every group, incident command, administration, and then all staff were given a training. And then we recorded those videos so they can be viewable at any point in time throughout the school year for refreshers. Continue to work on the ICS and prepare. So the incident command is just a structure we operate in when dealing with crisis, but prepare is more of a model that we try to use when dealing with a crisis. And a lot of just linking that together and how they work hand in hand and simultaneously. We just started doing that today with schools because that was some of the feedback, right? You're getting this type of emergency preparedness training and some of this, how do they go together? So just kind of clarifying those needs. The great part with prepare is we've been really working with 916 a lot and collaborating with them. So we've been doing trainings with them and inviting each other to come either participate in ours or we go to theirs. There's been a lot of collaboration there this year, which hadn't existed since I've been here in 2019. So that's been great. Offering safety trainings during professional development. So we had sent out an email on the baseline training at the beginning of the year. We wanted staff to weigh in on what they wanted to be trained in safety, what made them feel unsafe. So as we got that input, we created trainings for the PD days and the admin team could pick ultimately like, yep, we'd like to learn this. So it wasn't kind of a peanut butter approach. We trained them based on what that site wanted and needed to feel safe and create that safe environment. The last piece here would be meeting with local law enforcement. So I know again, since I've been here since 2019, that the relationship sometimes with local emergency services could be rocky, just depending on whatever was going on. We've really built that up. So this year we've met with them all virtually, shared our incident command teams, went over emergency documents with them. Good conversations, over an hour of conversations with, if it's not the chief, it's the lead staff in their PDs and fire departments with our administration teams and incident command teams. And just recently we wrapped up our walkthroughs. So after the virtual meetings went extremely well, they were like, we would love to come visit. They've come and visit, they've walked through, they've asked questions about our programs. They wanted to get a layout of the buildings. And at this point, all of the chiefs or the captains of like the SROs have set up bi-weekly touch bases with the principals. It's gotten to that level where they feel that comfortable and they like collaborating with each other. It's been just a good partnership and we plan to keep that up. The one thing here, it's gonna sound like I'm pumping my own tire here and I'm not trying to do that. But as we did the walkthroughs, I think it just goes to show you how important safety is to 287 is, and I quote, you guys are light years ahead of a lot of the schools that I respond to with safety measures, which makes you feel good because you're like, what's been going on the last 3 years with everything? And I just think that goes to the nature of our district and keeping it as a priority. And again, the good work that this whole district is doing. So, but it does sound like a pump tire for sure. So future training. So this is right. A lot had happened within that last year. We were trying to push out a lot of new things, a lot of training. I mean, for everyone to retain all that information is unrealistic. We wanted to come up with a little bit more of a structured training curriculum moving forward to the next school year. So the continued partnerships with our student staff for future training topics, that's still going to be out there. We still want their voice. We want them to tell us what would make them feel safer coming to work so they can do the jobs that we hired them to do rather than worry about their safety. We will send out another survey asking about safety to get more feedback from, again, all the internal and external partners as we did prior. We are going to structure training a little bit more differently, similar to like how we'd structure PD and education. We're going to structure safety that way. So we're going to try to break it out at the beginning and work through the whole school year, putting increments of safety and security and emergency preparedness training. And then just continue to follow up with that. So that'll be more, again, structured and easier to understand and learn things in increments rather than here's a whole bunch of stuff, try to learn it. We continue to collaborate with our local PD. That's, in my eyes, it's extremely important. We have been invited at one of our districts to a training with law enforcement and the FBI regarding an active shooter situation. The two admin have accepted, so we're going to go partner with them on that. And it's just a good learning opportunity in a worst case scenario environment for them. And we are collaborating still with 916 on the reunification. So we go to a 2-day training with our staff from each site. We'll go and learn about the reunification process firsthand with 916. Now, 916 has invited pretty much all the surrounding areas around 916. So it's like Ramsey County PD, a lot of the local other K through 12s in that area. It's going to be hosted out of Champlain Park School, but it's a 2-day training with law enforcement and everything. So we kind of get some hands-on training on the reunification piece, because that can be very challenging. There's a lot of moving parts with that. And then just continue training on the systems, right? When you bring in that many systems, and I didn't even cover that we're increasing and improving our closed circuit television. There's just a lot of learning with technologies. I think it takes me 2 months to learn a new cell phone. So I could only imagine bringing in 4 new systems for everybody to learn. Continue training with that. And with that, I will turn it over to Tanya.
Right. So when we started, Jake talked about the layers of safety and really looking at, we've talked a lot about the physical safety, and when you think about school safety and everything going on, you think to that first. But I really want to point your attention back to the base, and that's relationships and mental health support. And so we have this physical safety, and we really want to think about the psychological safety for students and our staff. So when we look at mental health support, as some of you know, that were on the board back in September, I think, or when we first talked about the Wilder ARPA grant that we got through the state, we were able to leverage money through that grant that'll end in June 30th to really look at what are some of the supports that we could be providing to our students during this time. So some of the things that we were able to provide directly to students is providing some sensory materials. So just thinking about some of those physical needs as students are coming in, just thinking about what are some ways to help them with learning some self-regulation and things like that during this time. We've also really worked to leverage these grants for professional learning. So one of the things that we've been able to do is really bring in Move Mindfully, which really helps to teach strategies that can be used within the classroom with students. And we've had staff attend some of those trainings. We'll have a foundation training coming in August, a 2-day training that'll allow for individuals to get more in-depth training and have more opportunities to learn how to integrate those practices within the classroom, strengthening those relationships with students, but also learning new strategies for calming. We've also been really working to continue to support students through our school-based mental health providers. As many of you know, in our communities, we are still in quite the workforce shortage. And so we have been able to leverage those school-based mental health providers as best we can to provide those supports in school for students, because that's where a majority of our students are getting their support is in school. And then thinking about our emerging needs or continuing needs, if you've seen the Minnesota State Student Survey this past year, looking at the chemical health needs of our youth, just looking at different approaches and ways of addressing that need. We've leveraged some of the dollars that we've had in Safe Schools and other areas to provide chemical health support, but we're looking at, is it enough? And what do we need to look at towards for the future to provide those supports for students? And then thinking about the future, as I mentioned, one of the things that we're offering this summer is really using the Wilder ARPA grant that has to be spent by the end of June, and a couple of other grants that are sunsetting to really provide some deeper foundation training that can spread out. And you're probably wondering, well, what does this have to do with our member districts? I have an answer for that. So the Move Mindfully Foundation training, one of the things that we were able to talk through with that provider, because we brought them in a couple of times, is to set aside some seats that my colleague Melissa will be able to share with CDAC members, that we should be able to provide some additional slots for member districts. We can't pay your staff to come, but we can save slots for some of your staff in your districts if they're interested in coming for that 2-day foundation training. It is all day, 2 days, but in August, but hopefully that is something that people can take advantage of. The other training that has some opportunity to have some set aside time would be the Rhythm to Recovery training. So most of the training that we're providing this summer, if there's interest from our member districts, there are opportunities for them to come. We just can't pay them under our grant, but they can definitely come. And that'll be opportunities where some of the staff that you hear about through Itinerant, our occupational therapists, and our speech language pathologists are offering some sensory processing and trauma and language training this summer. So we're just looking at those opportunities to really build on our capacity internally to look at our work differently. And then not to leave out restorative practices is really, as we see all of what's happening in our communities, it's going to take more than just that one and done approach to things. So using restorative practices to build community on a regular basis, and then have that built up so that if harm happens, there's an opportunity to leverage those relationships that are already existing to then repair harm and to really restore some of the things that are going on within the environment in the schools. So those are some of the things that we're doing to really try to make sure that we're not just focused on the physical, the outward safety piece, but also some of the internal needs. And now just turning it back over to you for questions.
Thank you. Some of the board members were able to actually go through the Evolve system and the Raptor check-in at South on Tuesday when we were visiting. So some folks might be able to share or ask questions about that experience. And the Rhythm to Recovery, is that the drumming that we did?
Yes, the
Okay,
Rhythm to
so we also-
Recovery
we
is
got
the
to do that
drumming.
as well.
Yes, there you
So,
go. Yes.
That's fantastic. Oh, and questions, comments from other board members?
I have a question for Jake. You talked about the EVOL system having a secondary screening. I was wondering, what does that involve and what triggers the secondary screening?
Yeah, so the secondary screen was something we had to build on the fly. Because of the Evolve system being damaged by a student. We had to we ultimately had to create a secondary screening process. So we ensured that we were still sticking to everyone being screened. What it involved was wanding initially with the handheld metal detector wands as that piece versus walking through the Evolve system at that time. Yeah, so we currently have a contract where they come and repair the system for 48 hours. Or within, excuse me, for 48 hours of the system, which has been pretty good. But we currently have two systems down where we're using different metal detectors, our old school metal detectors in the place of that now. So similar to what you'd see at a sporting event, the metal detector that you'd walk in, we currently have that at two schools. We still have one operating weapon detection system, so they're not both gone. But we've had to convert to that for the secondary screening phase because of the damage.
Okay, so it's really a replacement. It's not like a secondary thing, like where you see something, it's questionable, and then you search a backpack or something. Is that correct? It's actually replacing something that's down at
Yes,
the moment. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't want to remove one of the safety layers. We wanted to make sure every safety layer was captured despite losing that weapon detection system. So we just replaced it with a different system ultimately. Same concept though.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Michael?
I have a question about the training. We had one staff person talk to us a little bit about the Evolve systems. We asked some questions about it. Given the fact that we have a constant flow of new people coming in and out of the buildings as staff, how do you actually address development, professional development and training on these systems? When someone's new, let's say they came in mid-year or whatever it is, and they didn't have an opportunity for the other development, what process do we have in place to make sure any staff that comes in is getting some rudimentary minimum requirements?
Honestly, as of right now, learning as they get to the site.
Okay.
Part of the development for the curriculum next year will be anybody at the start of the year will get that training. And then that'll be part of the onboarding training of any new staff. They'll learn about the new systems. So that's kind of like,
That's what I was looking
where
for.
the fuzzy piece was right now, right? Because we put in all these systems.
And granted, it's all first year, so these are the
Yeah,
learnings that you're
but
taking.
that is the plan, is like, right, we know there's a lot of staff turnover and they should have this training prior to really going to the site.
The hard part is the institutional knowledge, right? Once you have it, how do you translate it to people who come into the institution? Got it.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have another
Yeah, hi.
Tanya. The training that you said that would be available, the openings for people from our district, that's going to be communicated from you guys to our special ed people?
Yes, so Melissa Broading, my esteemed colleague back there, our Director of Special Education. So when they have their Special Education Director Advisory Committee, I think that's right. Yeah, thank you. Always, all these acronyms, see that. When they meet, one of the things that we've talked about are what are those opportunities for staff from member districts to take advantage of what we're offering. And so we have a summer catalog that's already been created. What we need to do is just slightly modify it because under our grant, we can pay our staff. We can't commit to paying your staff, but what we can do is leave openings for your staff to attend anything that we're offering. So that summer catalog will be shared with them to be able to share out to staff in districts to see if they're interested in that. And we'll set aside slots. Some of them have a cap, some of them do not. So as long as we have space physically available to accommodate, we want to have that be open to others to take advantage of.
I have one more,
Oh, yeah.
actually, if that's okay. I love the chart, the layers of safety. I thought that was excellent. I love the part of the relationships being the key component. My concern generally would be around the mental health support. I know that you touched upon that. We all, of course, are facing that, both in our own districts, but also just in society as a whole. I'm curious as to what else can we do, both for 287 as well as for our home districts, to help support mental health support, to make sure the relationships are the grounding force to making sure we can take care of our safety. 'Cause I think that's, to me personally, that seems like the weakest link that we don't always have control over.
Yeah, I would think the one thing that we've done, I would say we've kind of taken a layered approach to mental health. And typically we think about just focusing on our mental health professionals, our school social workers, our counselors, our psychologists. One of the things that happened early on with one of our grants is really getting exposure to youth mental health first aid. Highly recommend it. There's some gaps and some things that could be tweaked, or psychological first aid. Oftentimes we don't think about our education support professionals or education assistants having knowledge of what are those signs, what are the things I'm noticing when I'm working day in and day out with a student that I should bring to someone's attention. In our system, our ratios are lower, right? So we will probably pick up sooner. But when I think about having worked in districts with many more students, the more adults that we have, whether it's your admin support that are at the front desk and they see those students that are coming late to school, is anyone thinking about what they notice different about how that student's coming late to school, what they look like when they enter? What youth mental health first aid or psychological first aid, they're two different programs but have a lot of commonalities, it's really helping to call attention to, maybe I need to alert someone about this because I noticed this. I don't know a lot. I'm not a professional. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that we can do that's different is when I notice, whether it's a youth that we're working with or a colleague. Like if you notice a colleague that's always put together and they start coming in looking disheveled every day, am I doing anything or saying anything about it or just letting it be? And I think the more we can as a society do that, the better off we'll be in terms of making sure we're providing that support. Because that teacher or that whoever that's coming in that's not in that normal state, who are they impacting throughout their day? And so those are some of the little things that I think we can really focus on and pay more attention to, especially coming, I know they officially ended right with COVID, but thinking about what have those impacts been for a lot of people who've been isolated or had to go through lots of different situations. What's that impact been on our students and how are we supporting that impact in a different way? Because we don't have more mental health professionals, but we have a lot of adults. And so it's really about being caring adults and noticing those things and reporting them to people.
Winnie, we recorded this meeting tonight, correct? So I could take everything that was perfectly just said. Is that correct? Thank you so much. That was an excellent response to that. And that really gave me a lot of thoughts to go back to the district and talk about. So thank you.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. I know when the violence project presented to AMSD, and it's come up again in the last couple of weeks, just talking about the I think you were talking about that there's lots of different impacts that you might be seeing, but that goes all the way up to the horrific things that they're all of our worst nightmares, right? And that mental health is a huge part of that, and the number of perpetrators of shootings in schools who are known to be suicidal is a huge majority, and that most of the rest probably we just don't know. And so that being such a huge part of, it's the base, but it's it feels like it's too easy to say, oh, it's the base of this, but clearly that's not what you're doing. But it is. I just want to acknowledge how hard this work is, because I think for both of you, this is a ton of work, and we're really grateful for all of it. And the technical pieces are clearly difficult. But the relationship and the mental health piece is it's like a cloud. It's very hard to grab a hold of. So I really, really appreciate the layered approach to that as well. And like Michael said, it's a very good explanation of it all. So any other last things? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you.
All right, in our business services and labor relations report, we have recruitment strategies and hiring for the 23-24 school year. Ann Becker, our executive director of HR and legal services, and I believe Kevin Witherspoon, senior manager of HR and labor relations.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Dowd and colleagues. It is my great pleasure to introduce Kevin Witherspoon to you. He started with us about 2 months ago. And he has a really great background in both education and HR. He has been a DHH teacher. He's been an assistant principal, a director of special education, and an HR director at South Washington County prior to coming here. So he's got great experience and he's been putting that to work for many of our supervisors in the district already. Without further ado, hold on. Okay. Can you finish there? Good. Neen's gonna put up our presentation and Kevin is gonna start us off.
While they're doing that, let us officially welcome you, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you for
you.
being here. It's really nice to have you.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, so thank you. That's what you do to all the new people?
Yep.
Waiting for the rest of them.
No, we usually make them do shadow puffs.
There we go.
There you go.
Do I have the clicker here?
Yep.
Okay. So today we just wanted to give a brief overview of some of our recruitment strategies and partnerships we have with outside organizations. Here's our learning objectives, but again, it's just a brief overview of the things that we're doing to recruit employees. Someone needs to click on the link. I don't know how to do that. So I wanted to first give you just a look at our new revamped webpage specific to the career site that we have. A couple of changes that I think are really nice for our candidates when they're looking at what the district offers.
Kevin, is this something new or is this something that you've changed on our website? Is it brand new?
It is, I have not changed, but it's
Okay.
since I've come here, I think they started a couple months ago. It's fairly new. So
Yeah, fairly new.
and if someone wants to just scroll a little bit, we started, with Make a Job You Love. We have the new links for it's packaged much nicer as well. So the new external, how to apply, the internal, some of our commitments to equity, which I think is important for our candidates to understand our commitment to equity, our generous benefits and our salaries. And if you page down a little bit further, we have some videos that we have on there, and we're working with the communications department to add staff testimonials and maybe some students so that people who are passionate about working in the district or in an intermediate school district or working with our population of students can be empowered to want to come here and apply for positions. So those are things that we are looking at. Nope, I'll go to the next slide.
Oh, 1 second.
Okay.
Thanks for the info.
Perfect. And so here are some of the places that we do our postings and job fairs. And so after employee referrals, Indeed is our largest source of recruiting for our district. We've started using, we of course go to the typical job fairs, right, that we have at our colleges and universities. We started using Mesa is a new webpage, or the webpage isn't new, it's new to the district as a way to do some recruiting. We've really started using Handshake as a way to meet more qualified candidates. Typically, most college students have a Handshake account, and that's how businesses actually do the recruiting. A majority of businesses do the recruiting with Handshake. And we have the ability to not only post positions, but we can do some direct messaging to candidates. So for instance, we could do direct messaging to everyone who's graduating with a special education degree or everyone who's graduating from this college. So we can do some of that direct messaging, which I think is very important to actually reach out to people to do some recruiting. We've also increased our presence at virtual career fairs. And some of those can be out of state as well. And so kind of widen our pool of recruiting efforts. And they're usually in the evenings. And so people, if they're on different time zones or something, can check in. And it's nice for us that are working the other end because we can just get things set up with their families, and when someone comes on, we can come talk with them. So it's been great. We've also recently reached out to Teach for America. They have a Career Connect site. So I think there was a connection with a board member, maybe with, yeah. And so I think that's a great way to start, because I think people who do Teach for America are very passionate about the students that we serve. And I think it's a great way to recruit.
Thank you. So I get to talk about the fun stuff, the grow your own programs. Those of you who've been on the board for a while are familiar with the West Metro Partnership. It is a way for not only education support professionals, but other folks to get their special ed licensure. And if you are interested in more information, Elizabeth knows this program much better than I do, as does Tanya. And Tanya is responsible for the relatively recent Grow Your Own for licensed support positions, such as social workers, school psychs. And then we have the anti-racist leadership program for employees who are anti-racist leaders to pursue administrative licensure. And you can see up there that we have a very high percentage of representation of BIPOC staff in these programs. And then we just have some additional strategies that we're engaged in. We applied for the Come Teach in Minnesota grant and we're waitlisted. So we're still a little bit hopeful, but that was about encouraging folks from out of state to take teaching jobs here, and their relocation costs would be covered. We have, as was mentioned in the weekly updates newsletter last week, we're working with Teachers on Call to provide ESP substitutes through the end of the school year to fill some of those openings we have not been able to fill with a more permanent staff. We have connections with teacher preparation programs. We have an employee at South Education Center who has a great relationship with someone at Augsburg. And so students in the Augsburg education program have been brought for a tour to South Education Center and have had other connections encouraging them to consider us. We've also made available part-time ESP opportunities in the hopes that that might get us some more candidates, and we have had some. As Kevin mentioned, that employee referrals are our best recruiting tool. We get a lot of ESPs, especially hired through those referrals. So not long ago, right before spring break, we sent out just a blurb that people could use or could modify to use on their social media sites to get out the word about our jobs. And we encourage people to put together videos to let people know why they would recommend coming here. We have placed flyers at strategic locations, mostly in the South Metro, around South Education Center in Richfield, as well as around West Education Center in Minnetonka. Because for whatever reason, we get a lot of candidates for the northern schools and Bremer and North, and not so much for the others. We've been working with short call sub-licenses for quite a while. We've had a signing and retention bonus in place for many years, which the board just reapproved. And our communications department has worked with Kevin primarily to develop a video with staff testimonials, and it should be ready to launch very soon on our website. I keep waiting for Kevin to advance the. Who's better at Ryan? Okay. Pretty soon, this sign that you see up here will be ready in actual hard form. Right now, it's just a mock-up, but it'll be for the South Education Center fence that faces Penn Ave. And we're excited about it because we think it looks really, really nice. Whoops. I guess no questions are going to be allowed. All right.
Thank you, Ann and Kevin. Questions? That's great.
I guess the last one really quick, on the referrals, because you mentioned that a lot of times, a lot of staff come in through referrals from staff. The types of programs that we offer to staff for those referrals and so on and so forth, have those changed over time? I know we have the signing and all that kind of stuff, but have we done anything specifically for the referrals to enhance them further to continue to reward current staff for effectively helping us find talent?
Yes, we have a bonus for staff who refer candidates who are hired, and it's money for their classroom. It doesn't, it's not paid through the entire year, I don't think. It's paid in the fall. Right?
It's, yeah, it's offered for them at any point.
Oh, at any point. Okay, good.
But is that program been pretty static the last several years, or have we been looking at altering, just hearing the information, if we're being successful from a staff referral basis? Do we want to look at any innovative deltas on that, just to see if that helps move the needle even further? I don't know.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Oh, I happen to work for a company that provides contingent staffing for healthcare. So we do a lot of digital recruiting. So I think I saw Facebook and Indeed. Have you tried Google? Like paid search, people who are searching?
So we
I don't know if
have-
that's a great strategy for this area or
Yeah.
not.
It's a hard one. So
Yeah.
I have explored it with Camille a little bit for
Yeah.
communications. It's also an expensive endeavor.
Yeah.
And so we definitely have to, the last estimate we got was way out of budget. So, but there are.
From a consultant, no doubt.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to acknowledge and appreciate what the HR department is doing. We are all, and you all in your district too, are working through staffing issues, and the intentionality, a secure plan, being really mindful about recruitment, paying attention to it, collecting where we're getting more candidates and really ramping up our strategies has been, I hope, will be very beneficial into this next school year. So just appreciating that. So we start the school year in a good place for our students.
I also want to mention that Mary Roos, who is our hiring specialist, is integral to these efforts as well. She was hoping to be here tonight, but was not able to.
Ruthie, I saw your hand.
I was just wondering, as far as the strategies that 287 are using, are you working closely with the member districts? Or are they doing their own thing?
We have not been working with our member districts. I think there's some sensitivity sometimes to competition for staff. So we would certainly be open to that. We have not done that before now.
But you're considered if requested.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Could be a good partnership with some, especially to grow your own programs. I'm impressed with that. You've been doing that for what, quite a few years?
Yeah, I don't remember how many we've had the grow your own for the special ed licenses. 7 years?
7.
Okay.
Say no more. Oh, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Kevin, and give our thanks to Mary as well.
Will do. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
For information. All right. We have just a couple of really brief items under board business. Start of an ad hoc policy committee. So after the conversation and some reflection on the conversation we had at the board retreat on policy, we would like to start a little committee to kind of start unpacking some of those board policy buckets. And so if you're interested in that, Crystal's going to send an email. We can only obviously have less than a quorum. So we're looking for like 3 or 4 folks who would be willing to serve on that. So look for an email on that coming from Crystal soon. Also look for an email for board representatives to serve at the strategic planning retreat in June. One other thing that isn't on the official list, but just that the timeline for the superintendent evaluation, we were going to talk about that tonight. I think Crystal was going to talk about that, but she will bring that back when we meet again in May. We do not have a meeting, like another meeting in April. So enjoy your, this has been our practice to have one meeting in April. You get kind of a nice surprise week off in the third week of April. Hopefully it'll be nice weather again. So we'll meet again May 11th. Tomorrow is the AMSD meeting. I know Crystal's hoping to be there, 7:30 a.m. If you can't be there in person, this is also offered on Zoom. It looks like a great meeting. Representative Adelson, Senator May Quaid, and Assistant Commissioner Bobby Burnham are going to be talking about the READ Act / bold literacy legislation. So I know we've talked about literacy here a lot. I'm sure everyone's talking about it in their home districts. So make sure to catch that if you are interested. And the Connections newsletter should be in your email. Any other items? Once around the table, anyone have anything to share? Yeah, Shannon.
I just had something I wanted to share. It's a conference that I've attended for 2 years now, and it's really excellent. It's I believe it's run by Education Evolving, but it is the Student-Centered Learning for Equity Conference. I've found a lot of value in attending it, and one of the nice things is now that the pandemic is over, you can attend in person or virtually. I keep opting into the virtual because I just find it very convenient. It is Thursday, May 4th. Registration is free, but you do have to sign up. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And if you are interested, the website is scl4e.org.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll see some of you there.
Yeah.
On Zoom.
Any other items? Yeah, Ruthie.
Just wanted to say, Brooklyn Center Community Schools, we've moved into a new district office. So if you're looking at going there anytime soon, we can send the address, or you might have already seen it. So it's exciting to see all the different programs that are coming under one roof.
And a big thanks to South for hosting our Get on the Bus on Tuesday. It was really great. We had, how does the moon cut his hair? Eclipse it. That was the joke of the day. Big thanks to all the students. They were the best. And the drum circle was super fantastic. So, all right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Heidi. Is there a second? Seconded by Michelle. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 7:40.
Can I get the name of that website that you were talking about, Shannon?
Right.
SCL4E.
So,
Yeah.
all right.